All right. Like audio going into OBS. It's a little low, I guess, maybe just because the microphone is way over here. Also talking kind of quietly, I guess. Let's make sure this is set right. Yep, that looks okay. All right, diving straight into it. I'm basically picking up where I left off on Saturday. For folks that might have caught it. You know what? Actually, I'm gonna turn on a light real quick. Yeah. The sun went behind a cloud or something, and it just got real dark in this corner. I don't want a little bit more light. I do that. Try it like this. Got some new lights that are a little bit brighter that I may turn on in a bit of still feeling kind of dark here. This ball getting away from me. He also. Oh. There we go. Start up some tunes in my little earbuds here. Okay, so picking up where I left off on Saturday, which is basically on, it's wrapping back around to a project I worked on a couple of weeks back, which is the Webb telescope project. I should probably pull up pages. I don't have any of this stuff up and ready yet. Let's do this. We'll do the camera. Let's also head to Learn Guide. Let's get the focus. I wonder if I could figure out how to make JavaScript or something that would do the focus for me. It has an autofocus, but it doesn't work very well. It gets confused a lot and tries to refocus a lot more than is necessary, and it is kind of jarring because it's just like, ooh, constantly refocusing, jarring, almost as if someone had hit the camera, which is what happened this time. So that's looking pretty good. Maybe tweak the focus a little bit more. All right. So there's the camera. This is the, I guess it will be James Webb. Yeah, James Webb Telescope MagTag project. Again, originally I made this a couple of weeks back, and it was, I went over this all on the stream on Saturday, so I'd say head back to that VOD if you want a more thorough explanation, but the quick version is that the API we were pulling from is gone. There's a new API, but it required an updated certificate is what it turned out to be. We updated the certificate, and we're now able to pull from this new API, which is actually directly from NASA as well, which is nice because the previous data source was a third-party thing that was like kind of web scraping the page and then returning the data as JSON from there. The new data source is straight from NASA. It's already in JSON, so it's ready to go. The last thing really before everyone could start doing this wholesale is we do need to get CircuitPython updated to bring in that new certificate. I did PR for that on yesterday. So that's in there. It's just waiting to get merged in and decide if it's going to backport to 7.2. I noticed Jeff mentioned a little while ago. So that is in the works already, which means I think we can go ahead and get started on modifying the actual app. And so the main things that we're going to do into this app are get rid of from Earth, get rid of to L2 orbit, probably elapsed, maybe. And then we'll be adding a couple additional temperatures, I think, or at the very least we'll be moving some of these temperatures over to occupy the space that's currently where the distances are at. And that's because the distances are no longer as relevant because it has reached its destination. It's not really going further away or closer towards its destination anymore at this point. It's already there. It's just, I assume, hanging out in orbit. I'm not 100% up on the whole plan, but I assume it's out there somewhere orbiting, and it's just going to be staying roughly in that same orbit that it's in, not going further away or closer to us anymore. And the data in this new API does reflect that, actually. The data that's in this newer API does not have the distance stuff. Oh. I wonder if it could be mad that this number is old? So this number on the end is essentially just a timestamp. And it's for the purposes of tricking JavaScript, basically. It's kind of a convoluted web development thing. For folks that are experienced with JavaScript and fetching data, you've probably run into this before. Basically, the browser is most browsers, modern browsers like Chrome and Firefox, and Edge, I assume pretty much any modern browser, it's trying to cache as much information as it can. So if you imagine, like, you go to a web page, the web page loads some, a JavaScript file that contains a library that it uses for, having pretty buttons or whatever it is, right? Some kind of JavaScript library that does something on the page. The browser wants to cache a local copy of that because it's like a couple 100K or something at most, probably. You're not going to miss the hard drive space, but it will cause the page to load faster next time because it won't actually have to transfer that couple 100K from the server back to you. You already have your own copy of it. I don't want to go too far down into the details of how that works, but basically this unique thing here can trick it by changing the URL every time you make a new request for data. You trick the caching mechanism into thinking that it's never seen the thing that you're asking for before. Therefore, it won't have a cached copy of it. Therefore, it will always go get the latest copy from the server. It will force it to send the copy from the server. It did end up loading anyway. Really, all of this started as I wonder if this number being in the past could cause the API to get confused, but it did eventually end up loading. So the data we have now are, let's see, we do still have launch date and time, so I guess we could still have elapsed from launch. That's just going to continue counting up, though. Deploy table index, so this is something to do with the steps. I'm not actually sure what that index leads to. I will say NASA Webb Telescope. I don't know the exact page this is on. I'm sure this will get us here. Yeah. Oh. Well, maybe not. Let's see. Where is Webb? Track Webb? Same thing? Oh, this one's not a link. Interesting. This should be a link. It's like now the cursor doesn't change, and it doesn't pop up the little thing in the corner here that tells me where I'm going to. It's like just a button that redirects. Whereas this one actually is an anchor tag, which is a link. So my mouse changes, lets me know that it's a link, and also shows me where it's going to go to. They both go to the same place, it looks like, in this case. Yeah. Just suboptimal design, in my opinion. But they also have a telescope in space to worry about, so the website's kind of an afterthought, I would assume. Which is probably how it should be. So we have, I guess the steps probably... Step 4, force phasing. My guess is that this index, current deployment table index, somehow tells us something about this timeline here, which step we're on in the timeline. I don't know the exact way that it works. Course phasing, we're on step 4 now, so I guess maybe it's showing 34. Maybe we're on the third major, the third major task, and we're on the 4th step of that task. Oh, here's another one, which is also not a link, which means I can't middle click it in order to get a new tab. It's another bonus of making anchor tags. Yeah, okay, so this was the first scroll, click thumbnails. I don't know why scroll doesn't do it. I guess alt scroll? No, that was, why not? Oh, this took me to a different page. That's zoom, shift? Shift and scroll, I see. Okay. Yeah. A lot of these things have been done by now. I don't know, it doesn't tell you the index. I guess you would just have to know the full list. Anyway, though, I think the things that we're most interested in showing in the new data are going to be the temperatures. We have these four: temp warm side 1C, warm side 2C, and then cool side 1C and 2C. I don't know what the C, 1C, 2C, I don't know what those. Instrument radiator. Okay, here we go. This is showing pretty closely where the different sensors are at. Oh, interesting. Close is at the bottom left and the top right. Ooh. Interesting. You don't usually see close in the bottom left like that. One, two, three, four, five. Okay, so these yellow ones, these are the primary ones that we were getting in the past as well, which are already displayed on the screen here. We have 4, 2 hot side, 2 cold side. So those are actually the same sensors as before, I believe. And then these are for instruments. And there's another 6, 5, another 5, right? Because this counted to 5 here as well. It's like 3 on this thing. MIRI bench. Red instrument. NIR cam bench. It's near the camera, and then another one near the spectrometer. Find guidance near the infrared imager. Steering mirror. Find steering mirror. Okay, so we got 5 more. So the main question, I guess, becomes, do we have enough room? Oh, and we lost speed as well, actually. We used to have speed here. and we no longer do. I almost think what we do is just basically let's get rid of all 4 that we have that are on the outsides right now. The only ones that we'll be keeping are these 4 temperatures on the inside, and then we'll add the other 5 temperatures as well. So the new project will just be showing temperatures, which kind of matches what's in the data here. The only other thing it has is like this index, but this page really is going to do a better job of showing you the index, right? Because it has this whole real nice timeline with photos and points where it's at in the process and all of that stuff. So we don't have quite as much room or ability to display the timeline graphics and stuff on a mag tag. So I think we could leave those out, show the temperatures. So basically we'll just be reworking this UI. So then do we go like hot side as one label, cold side as one label, and then put the data side by side the same way we have it currently in the center? That leaves our center to open up and our whole other side open up. And the percent, I guess, as well. We'll get rid of. Yeah, let's start out like that and see where that gets us to. I will grab the code. Must have a copy of this on my mag tag, but it's also good, I think, to start with the copy that's in the Learn Guide. That way I'm like, because who knows, maybe like I started working on this before, maybe I changed something here or there, maybe I have a different version at this point in time, so it's good to just start fresh here. So we should have already still. All right, I'm going to keep a copy of that because that has the successful fetch inside of it. And we're going to head back here. We're going to change the URL. We'll actually tack on a number instead of using hard-coded. So here, we'll just do that. Fake data we could update. We might as well, because then I put in fake data so that I could work on the UI and iterate quickly without having to actually wait for the request each time. I don't know why that was so much extra space. Wish I could easily just sure there is a better way than this, but all right. So first thing I think we should do is let's put the code that's gonna fill in the time here when we make the request. So I think what we'll do is just go oh. Probably doesn't matter. It's gonna be upset. We had a decimal in here. I guess we could always just convert it to an int and then, or rather convert it to a string and then just take the decimal out. It does seem to be taking a minute to respond today, so that fake data is going to be really nice. Yeah, I think let's just plan on turning it to a string and then taking the decimal out. That way it definitely won't cause any trouble. We'll end up changing some of these things. Label names. Maybe I'll make the, maybe I'll change the label names to be more specific to where they're at on the screen. Like I have the comments in there. Maybe we'll name them based on that. That way, in case if we end up changing this again, we're not having to like rename all of the labels every time. Our actual fetch of else we just get it from the fake data. So when we ready to do this, I think let's make another helper like this is gonna return time.monotonic passed into string, replace the dots with nothing. Here we go, like that. I'm tempted to make a variable to store this in instead of, because like we're gonna call this twice, right? We're gonna call it once when we print, and we're gonna call it again here when we do the actual request. We also probably shouldn't mix format with percent substitution. So we're going to get two different times, actually. The URL that prints is not going to be the exact URL that we end up hitting. Whereas if we put it into a variable, then it would be. But then we'd also be allocating an extra variable. Maybe it isn't so bad, but should be all we need. So a bunch of this stuff will not work exactly right anymore because of the way that oh yeah, this is coming back to me. We had weirdness with numbers that were too big. Basically too many digits. That's right. Yeah, I'm remembering this now. We did tricks with the string data to try to, well, we did tricks with the float data to try to turn it into a string data so that we could just put it on the screen. Oh, wow, look at that. No, don't want to do that. Man. All right. Reassigning a label to a new label. Won't have access to the code until tonight. Assigning a label to a new label. I mean, ordinarily you wouldn't do that, I don't think, or you shouldn't. I think if once you create a label, sorry, this is I don't think I ever talked about it, but I'm looking at this help with discussion with Anecdata here. This is what I'm kind of talking to myself about. I think you would ordinarily not set a label to a new label. You would create it once, and then if you want to change the text, you can change the text, or if you want to change like color or scale or background color or padding or any of that kind of stuff, you can do most of it after the fact, I believe, with properties. So theoretically, there shouldn't be a need, I don't think, to actually initialize a whole new label. It's possible I'm missing something though. Maybe there's something that doesn't have a property that only has an argument in the constructor, in which case if you wanted to change it, then you would have to make a new one. So be what's going on there. Go back to here so I can side by side with a screenshot. And this is where I'm gonna start renaming these things. So elapsed time value. Okay. I think what I'll do is this will now be top left value. This will now be top right value. Top right value. Middle right value. Bottom right value. Left. Timestamp I think we'll keep actually. And timestamp I will say also is the one that is slightly different. Although come to think of it, we don't get a timestamp though, do we? Yeah, no, we get the launch date and time. Ah, yeah, so we're not going to be able, I mean, we could have the timestamp, but it would, well, I don't know if we can have the timestamp actually. If it's not getting returned in the data, that's where we were taking it from. Maybe it's in a header? Response header? See? Yeah, maybe we can try to pull it from there. We won't be able to for fake data though. I'll keep it for now. We'll try to put it back. I'll keep it, I want to keep it called timestamp. Or change it to bottom left. Keep it timestamp for now. Up center. Oh. This is one of the nice things about PyCharm is refactor. There's a code feature thing called refactor that allows you to rename all of this stuff at once. So like I was renaming each of those, and it was also renaming all of the usages. We're basically going to have top left label and top left value now for these two. The label is below, the value is above. Whoops. Top center label. So I think we won't need any of this fanciness anymore, because we don't look to be getting any floats that are too many decimal places. This is an interesting idea for a comment inside of JSON. JSON doesn't really support comments. They managed to make a value that is not really a value and instead is a comment. We basically just don't need those anymore. Yeah. So PyCharm doesn't realize that this is rebooting the device. It's saying like, hey, response could be none, basically, as in we could have tried to execute this code and it could have raised an exception, which would have put us to here, and inside here there is no response equals anything. So if we execute this code and then we come down here and we try to access response, it might be none still. But we know that's not actually the case, because this will execute supervisor reload, which means this whole script is going to restart from the beginning. It's not actually just going to continue executing after that. So this is actually fine. So I almost, of course, now that I renamed everything, yeah, I think I want to actually move the temperature ones over to the left, which I guess is the danger in naming all of these based on their physical location, is now I have mislabeled ones if I do that. Or the other option, I guess, is I just put... Yeah, actually, let's do it this way. Let's take out elapsed, put in temp. I'll leave from Earth for now. I'll leave this for now. Center I'll also leave for now, but it's going to change. Where is speed? There it is. Speed. So actually, I think we'll end up with just one label and 2 rows of values. maybe we don't need this one anymore. Middle left label. Okay. Timestamp is not going to work the same. This temperature stuff, this is actually going to go into now top left value. Does not get accessed from the same place anymore. Now it is inside of current state. And then these, which actually these do look like they stay the same. Okay, I see. I did 1C, 1C, and then 2C, 2C. Let's keep it the same. 1C, 1C, C. I don't know why I'm copying these. They look the same to me, but just in case if it was off by one character or something. Okay, so this would now put it in the top left. So let's head back up to here and put test run to true. See where this gets us. Such file or directory. Yeah, the mag tag has relatively small storage. I think I end up deleting stuff in order to make room for the projects. Trashes? I'm surprised there's usually like a trash folder. Trashes? It's not usually the name of it though. Oh, we have 95K, so maybe we have enough room to paste the font. Okay, so probably our issue is just that we have a bunch of stuff looking for data that no longer actually exists. Be able to just turn off for now, I think. We're not gonna have any of this. None of that stuff. So right now we're just trying to get the temperatures in. Okay. Okay, so that's actually good. The problem that makes it look messed up is the fact that temp, its label is too high. We still have the label here as well, which we'll eventually get rid of, but to start with, our temp label is too high, so let's scoot that down some. Our top left label. Basically want it to be at the height where the center this one was, which is 54. That should scoot it down. Okay. Possibly we'll scoot it to the right some as well, so that it's kind of centered. But that's a bit of a like finishing touches type thing. This is good enough to go on for now, I think. So do we have enough room that we could fit 5 temperatures and 5 labels? I guess maybe we shouldn't have bothered to rename all of those labels, honestly. We might change the layout somewhat drastically, which means that all those new names we applied are not going to matter. I'm almost thinking something like, what if we had 2 columns? One column is values and one column is labels. And we do that for our other 5 here. And we put in the labels we put a shorthand, something like instrument camera, instrument spec, or just inst cam, inst spec. I'll have to look at the page and figure out inst miri, inst FSM. We figure out kind of a shorthand for those. Yeah, let's start it up like that. So I think I'll just reuse top right for my values. And I think I'm gonna just pack them all into one label, kind of like how I did these ones. So this is basically, these are all in Kelvin, I assume. So for values, this will be this and a K and a new line. And it will be basically 5 of these. Three. Alright, so we got 5 lines with 4 new lines in between. Each of them has a K, which is our Kelvin. I did a lowercase k, which matches a lowercase c here. I don't know if there's actually a convention. I know they're uppercase here, but it's also like camel case because it's JavaScripty. Not sure if there's a right way or a wrong way, but these are basically going to be something like this. 5 of these. Which one of them is one of these? See how that looks. Oh, it's gonna look messed up because there's gonna be labels in the middle of it, but see what it does. Okay. Yeah, too much space between. I'm pretty sure. For now, let's just move that. Move that. And these. So close. Just a little bit too much space. Let's say is there a line height or something? Line spacing. Line spacing. Line spacing. Okay. This does look promising. How much space should appear between different lines of text? Default is 125, which looks pretty good with built-in fonts, so we could maybe do something like let's see what 1.0 looks like. Interesting. Oh. So I don't think it matters unless there's actually new lines. Maybe I don't know, maybe we'll need a boolean. I mean, that's going to scrunch these ones as well. But that's also not so bad, right? They're still legible. That's for independent values with the bar in between. We got 2 cold sides, 2 hot sides. Vice versa, though. The cold sides are the negatives, I guess, probably. This looks better now, though. I do think this we can go with. So we basically just need labels for those 5, and I think what I'll do is just put them all in one. The same way I put all the values in one label. Basically, I'm breaking, instead of using individual labels for every value, since a bunch of the values are the same type of thing, I'm kind of grouping them into one label. So where's our center temp? Yeah, let's just reuse this one. And text will basically be, text is actually going to be kind of convoluted, isn't it? Temp labels equals string, which is going to be, well, we could just hard code it, I guess. So, instrument cam, I'm going to go inst cam, new line, inst, I guess these are all going to be inst. I guess that's fine though. Inst spec, inst. This one I'm less sure what this FGS theory. Oh, FGS, find guidance sensor. Okay, maybe inst guide. And it's a tightrope between like conveying enough information that if you saw the magtag project, you could load this page and figure out which values are which, but also still keeping it on the display. And we don't have a tremendous amount of extra room. We got a good chunk there. Basically this open space here, but we probably can't include like the full thing, or certainly not a full like definition like here. I will say this one, inst guide, is the third one we did. It is listed as 4 here. It's plus. Just making this bigger, okay. Okay, yeah, these are in a different order. Yeah, these are in a different order. It also has cam as number 2, where we got cam as the first one here. So that's guide. This one would then be this infrared instrument, Miri bench, MIRI, Miri. Infrared instrument. So let's go inst IR, infrared instrument. Then our last one is FSM, which is find steering mirror. Maybe inst steering or inst mirror. Find steering mirror. Or inst FSM. We could also maybe use these acronyms instead of like inst whatever. We could probably fit Miri bench. For this one, I might just do FGS instead of the slash and everything. That's probably looking like the longest one. Yeah, I think I like that better, actually. Let's do that. So this one would just be FSM. This one would be the Miri bench. This one would be, I think, FGS bench. Okay. And then this is going to be a totally different spot. So we don't want to anchor by the midpoint anymore. Instead, I think we want to anchor by the... We want to anchor by the right edge. Whoops. And our position will not be display width. Instead, it will be honestly, it should be the X. Right value dot X minus 6 or something. 54, we would not be 54. Instead, we would be basically the top. Where is top right at? 6. Oh. That's the wrong one. Looks like our X did not work right. Wonder if there's any bug in maybe the X doesn't get, the X depends on there being content. Maybe there's no content yet. This doesn't quite feel right though. Huh. Interesting. $290. I think what's happening is that the top right X is further to the right before content gets added. Once content is in there, then I believe the X would be back here, which should be lower than 290. I don't know exactly how many pixels a mag tag has. 290 sounds like about, yeah, 296 total. And so R6 in, yeah, okay. So our X is basically 290 because we told it 6 in from the edge and we don't have any content yet. Hey Johnny, I am working on James Webb telescope updates. So we got this new data source that's direct from NASA, and so I'm redoing the James Webb project to change which values we show and fix all the labels and everything, because it has different data now. It's mostly all stuff that's tied to temperature of various different parts of the telescope satellite thing. Whereas before we also had some like distances and some elapsed times and some different things like that. Also, I see Cornbread asked in the Twitch chat as well. So if Cornbread is around, that's what I am working on, is James Webb Telescope, pulling the new data from the new API and putting it onto the display. So we kind of are stuck with this a little bit. We either need to put content into top right text, which is the one that has these 5 values in it, We need to put that in before we access X right here, or else we can't use it. And I think maybe I'm just leaning towards... I don't know which way I lean. I'm tempted to just hard code it somewhere out here. But if we got extraordinarily long values in these, then our labels would start to overlap. It does look like we're only getting down to 1 decimal. Which shouldn't go much longer than that, I guess, with the exception of, we might bump from 2 to 3 digits at some point. We were not going all the way up to 4 digits. Nice. Okay. So I guess one other way we could do this is... we could set the anchored position again after we add data to it. Also, we'll need to put it back to 1.0 here, because we do want it to anchor from its right edge. Basically, I'm trying to put it to the right of these values. Yeah. Okay. And now we're looking good with, I think, one exception being that our line spacing did not apply to both. So let's do that. We also have some different paddings. Might change it a little bit. But those line up pretty good. Maybe we put padding top on the value ones, and that would make it line up pretty much perfect, I think. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Is FSM not a bench? I just noticed all of those say bench. Yeah, they don't. Okay. I don't know if that means benchmark. Oh, okay, the bench of the instrument. Which I guess makes sense, right? 4 of these are together on this part, and then the 5th one looks like it's back around on the other side, so it does make sense that we would have 4 benches and 1 not, maybe. Okay. So that looks pretty good. Let's see if I can get the timestamp back. I would love to still be able to put the time, I think. That way you know when the data was fetched. It is going to be trickier, though, because it's not getting returned in the data. We used to just get a value, kind of like this one, which had a string, which had the current time in it. We no longer do get that. And this is only the launch date, which will never change, right? It always launched on 12/25. Headers. I think the only way we're going to be able to get the current time is out of the headers. And I don't know exactly the right way to get the header. Headers. Well, that's easy enough. Okay, so let's try putting it back onto real data. So we turn this back to false. More test run. Then when we get the data, I don't know if you have to do this before you get the data. Yeah, so that's actually pretty easy. It's easier than I thought it might be. We can get rid of a couple of these prints now. We don't need to print the X thing. This thing we don't need anymore. I should have made more changes. I wonder if we can access those after. I guess we'll find out, right? If we just go here, well, let's keep that one, I guess. Timestamp. String. It's already a string, I guess, right? Is it? Nope, lowercase. Let's see what that does. I do think there are some times like this where it does still get stuck inside the request. And I don't know if it's actually stuck or if it is just not allowing the key error to get raised while some portion of the request is happening. Because I have actually ended up in this state a few times. What I have not done is had the patience to actually just wait for a while. I feel like at least once it came back out of it eventually. Like I had pressed Control C and then maybe like a minute or two later, it eventually finally, you know, came back, broke into the REPL and all that stuff. Yeah, this is what we want though, really. If it's gonna fail or if it's gonna get stuck or whatever, like this is really what we want is just fail, reboot, try again next time. Perfect, okay. So we can get the date out of the headers. One problem with it is that it runs far enough to be in the label. Okay, so let's think about, we have a couple of options. FSM happens to be the shortest one of these, so if these things were all right aligned, then we'd actually have room there, but then these would also be different widths, which I think would look kind of weird. I think I prefer this big box being an actual rectangle here instead of like stair-stepped based on the width of the label, so I don't think I want to go that route. Maybe we can just put a new line after the year. Yeah, I think I like that. So it would be Monday, 28 Feb 2022, and then new line, and then the next line would be 1705 or whatever it says down here. 03, I guess it would have been. Yeah, let's do that. So how do we do that? So if we split on the spaces and then we rejoin the first 1, 2, 3, 4 substrings together, that's our first half. Okay, so this is going to be, let's do this. Time parts. Headers. Date. Split on space. Okay, so all of our parts are now in there. And now this is space.join. Time parts. I will freely admit I don't have slicing memorized. I tend to always end up doing this to figure out how slicing works. So if I want the first 4 things, whoop, that's not it. There we go. Okay, :4. So we rejoin these first 4 by the space, and then really what we want is a string where we have first half, new line, second half. And then the second half would be the remaining ones of these, honestly, which would be actually be what I had the first time, which is 4 colon. Oh, I'm still in the REPL. I'm expecting that to run. It's definitely not gonna. Oh. Interesting. So now I got into a stuck state without a request running. So maybe that's actually a... Maybe there's actually some bug that's not to do with requests that is leading to the state of seemingly... Oops, that's a totally different thing. Because now I no longer Control-C, Control-D, no longer do anything. In fact, I can't type anything. Typing anything doesn't do anything anymore. TO is still connected though, right? Otherwise it would show disconnected. So the mag tag is alive enough for the computer to see it and have stayed connected, but the inputs no longer doing what they're supposed to. I'm gonna hit reset. That should get us back to a good state. I don't know what that's... I don't know what's going on with that. There we go. That's looking good. All right. So this worked. We have our date split now. These are shorthands for the day and the month, which means they should always be 3 digits, which means we should never get any longer on the first line, which means we shouldn't run any risk of ever running into our label here, I don't think. I think this is looking pretty good to me. I almost want to keep the old code. Yeah, I mean, I'm probably not aiming for too much more pretty. I'm pretty happy with what we have, at least as far as like everything is labeled with units and what thing it is. It would be cool to stick a NASA logo or something, I will say that. I don't know where. I mean, really, this little area here is kind of the remaining open spot we have. If we had a little black and white NASA logo, we could toss it in there. That's true. That is much prettier. I will definitely give you that. That's looking really nice, actually. I like that. I like that interface quite a bit. Did you make this, Johnny? Yeah, looks like it. You did a good job on this. Got a pressure sensor and then gas sensor. Okay, yeah, parts per million near pressure, and then of course temperature, I think, comes from the VME as well. Nice. Got off the first production. Nice. Yeah, that looks really nice. That does look really nice. I probably am not going to take this project quite that far. I think one challenge is that in the Webb telescope, we don't have... None of the values have more or less importance, I think, than the other values. On this, it appears to be designed such that like the temperature is kind of the most important thing. It receives the most amount of screen real estate, and therefore it gets the largest text. But we don't really have one value, or I should say even more generally, we don't really have any values that are more or less important than the other values. They're all just kind of informational at this point. We could maybe... a line might be helpful, although I feel like the color we have here does a pretty good job separating the left and the right sides. I will say on the topic of prettiness, I do kind of wish these lined up. But I think that that's probably because the font is not monospace, and this is a 3.1 versus a .0 right here. The 1 is just not as wide. And that's what's causing that. I guess the 1 here as well in the 12 digit. But if we use a monospace font, I guess that would fix itself. But it's also not like, I wish they were in line, but I also don't think it's like terrible that they're not. We could maybe, we could spruce it up a bit with colors. Let's try playing with colors a little bit. What if we made the background of this one be one of the other grays and then made the foreground black. That helps kind of denote this as its own thing over here. Oops. Was that? Otherwise I'll accidentally click back to it. Yeah, there are a couple. I think there's, I want to say there's like four different colors it can do, like white, black, and then I think there's a light gray and a dark gray. Maybe there's one more. Nice. Let's see what we can do there. We may revert it back, but I'm interested enough to give it a try. So let's say top left value. So we had, I want to say, is it 4s and 6s or something like that? I guess part of my problem is, though, this is all handled inside of here. What's the name of that? Can I not label background? Can I not use it as a... I can, right? Yeah. Okay, this is the value one, not the label one. It's like it must have been setting the color before, right? Because ones are gray. This is actually where we want this. Or is it? No, it's not, because it would be the value. Yeah, we do want to do the value. Okay, what am I doing? I mean, I guess we could have this for both, and then just it defaults to that, which won't change anything. That's probably fine, I guess. Except this would actually default to black. So that's what will make the rest of this unchanged. I don't think, is that the right? Yeah, no background color. Okay. So then here, when we make this, we would go BG color, and then I'll try, I want to say 6s give it a different color. We may as well go back to this, test run true, and I think we'll have to handle... Yeah. What I'll do is take this. Right here, then have fours and Bs. Okay, it's not 6s. Yeah, because that's the same. this one will be lighter, which is perfect actually. If this is lighter, then we could use a dark text on it, and it would look pretty good, I think. Yeah, this would definitely look nice with dark text. Could add maybe a little bit of padding as well, potentially. So it'll be white by default. Oh yeah, because I hadn't actually added it yet. There we go. And I do think some padding would look nice. Honestly, we may be able to just do it for all of them. Or really left and right are the two things that need a little bit of padding. It's not much. Yeah. Like that. Imp could come up just a hair. Did we get more space here we had a minute ago? I guess we could add a little bit of padding to the bottom. That would help close the gap. We could run into trouble if we ever hit a third digit on the hot side. I wonder if that happens. So that would make this wider, which would make it probably start to overlap with this. If there's enough room for the whole word temperature here. Yeah. Okay. I kind of like that. Alright, so what I'll do now is get rid of all my commented out ones and go back and make the labels actually make sense again. We're basically not using either of these, I think. Whoa. Yeah, that still runs. Okay. Enter. I don't think we're using this anymore either, actually. We have a top left label. But really, I think middle left probably makes more sense now. It's unfortunate because I'm using label two different ways, kind of. Sometimes when I say label, I'm referring to the object in display text library known as label. Sometimes when I refer to label, I'm referring to the concept of putting a word next to a value to show what that value is. Does make it a little bit confusing, I think. Yes, a little bit, I would agree. Really, the formulation of these four came more so from the original one. We did not really have much space. The temperature was the last thing I did, and we basically had this amount of space in the middle, which wasn't enough really to do it any other way that I could come up with. And I will say also, I did not spend a whole lot of time on this original project because when it got done initially, it was while it was still en route to its destination, and we had like a week and a half or 2 weeks before it made it to there, so I did want to get it out like ASAP, so that folks could start using it. I would be happy to have a better approach, though. I will say definitely like this is in the Learn Guide repo, and so if you or anybody wanted to PR a better interface for it, I'd definitely be more than willing to review and merge. I will say too, like I'm not, in my day job I wear many hats, and one of them has become design and like interface design, but I'm not like good at it in my opinion. So I do think this is not the best interface, but I do think this is like on the higher end of what I am capable of without basically just trying to learn a lot more about design. I'm a lot more of a on the development side and the back end side of things as far as my actual knowledge, but being at a company without a designer, I have kind of picked up a little bit of design. It's just somewhat haphazard and a lot more based on just like trying stuff and being able to tell if it looks too bad or not, quote unquote, too bad. Multiple value texts here. Temperature values. Yeah, no, I agree. Honestly, that magtag one that you pasted a little while ago is really nice. Quite frankly, that's like probably better than anything I could come up with by myself. It's interesting because like the idea of less is more is powerful in design. You know, you look at something like that and you can instantly tell it's good design, but it's difficult sometimes in the moment to like pare things down to actually come up with what ends up being a good design. For me, at least, I find it challenging. I've used name and value, name instead of label. I do kind of like that, actually, name. That's a good idea, C. Grover, name and value. I do like that. I think I'm actually make value, make name text, yeah. I do like that. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. set the... I feel like this is worth an extra comment to explain why it's done down here, because it's kind of like the only one where I just randomly change the position after the fact. Everything else just gets initialized in the position where it's going to go. This one is just a little bit different because we tried to anchor it to the right side of these values. We ended up having to do it down here after we actually put the text in it, otherwise the X is different. Gold side, cold side. Okay. Play back in just a minute. All right, and we're back. Right align the values. Yeah, I don't know which, if you mean the values, the instrument temperature ones is my guess. We don't have a super easy mechanism to right align within a label. I guess really the solution would be if these were in 5 different labels, then they could be easily right aligned. Same thing for the names as well, this column. If those were 5 different labels, then they could all be right aligned and it would be pretty straightforward. But I don't think we have a good way to do it in a single label. So it probably would look better a little bit right aligned, but it would also make a bunch of extra code, which might still be worth it. But I did take this route because it's quicker and easier. It's also, this project's been broken for a little while since that other third-party API went down. Partially, I'm picking some things that are quicker and easier in an attempt to just get it back to working so folks can do anything at all with it. And then, like, if it's a popular thing, then maybe it's worth going back and putting the time into. The other thing I will say, too, is, like, I think this is an interesting thing to illustrate to people. Like, some folks might not necessarily realize that you can use a single label for multiple values like this. So partially my motivation is like putting different types of examples out there into the world so that folks could maybe adapt this to a totally different API or a totally different type of interface, where they now know that they can put different values into one. They would look better right aligned, though. I'm definitely in agreement on that. Let me catch up a little bit here. Caption instead of name, that's another good one. I don't think so. Not a label with multiple lines in it. In a formatted string, I am happy to have you fix it, but I would say that's not necessarily the reason I am leaving it that way. I'd be happy for anyone to come and improve it. Generally, as a blanket statement, honestly, for any of my projects, I am 100% happy to have people come along and make improvements to them. I will never, like... I will always have time, let's put it this way, I'll always have time to review PRs and suggested improvements to my projects. I will always make time for that. I'm not sure if I know what you mean. A formatted string. Yeah, well, can a formatted string be used in label text? I think so. If you mean just calling .format, then yes, it definitely can. Like, in fact, in the labels we have, we are doing set the text equal to this string and then .format. So you could try to get fancy and like add spaces in front of these or something. Maybe that would push them over to the right, but the crux of it is actually the same as the crux of this issue, which is I think that this font is not monospace. So adding a space there, it will change the alignment, but I think it will still be squiggly. I think it still won't be perfectly vertical unless we also switch fonts to a monospace font. And then we could have it right aligned using the trick of just putting a space in front of the ones that are fewer digits. It would be cool though, honestly. Like, I would say it would be super nice to improve the display text library to where a multi-line label can actually have its anchor, its alignment to the right. And then each line within that label would get aligned to the right. That would be cool, as if we just got that as a new improved functionality. Oh yeah, because there's a formatting trick, I guess. There is like a zero pad or something like that. There's a way you can pad. I mean, we wouldn't be padding zeros in this case. We'd be padding spaces. But I do, yeah. I think there's some stuff you could fill in here that would tell it to like try to always use 3 spaces, and it would add a space if it's not big enough. Yeah, I do. I think I don't. Well. I say yeah, I think so. I don't think the big C will actually be wider than the little c. I don't actually know. We could also always drop the font size by just a hair if we had to. Although that does require changing more files, but end of the world. Let's do the K's too if we're gonna do, because I'm sure Kelvin is probably capital K. Yeah, the dots throw off the alignment as well, that's true. Capital K, yeah. Oh yeah, it does push it just a touch too far, doesn't it? So close, though. I think we're starting at 6. Maybe we could pull that closer to the edge. Especially because we have padding inside the label now. We don't really need the padding. We don't really need the margin, it would be. That's not bad. I do kind of like that. I think this could scoot over as well, maybe. Temperature, I think, could also come up a couple of pixels. Yeah. Definitely, design work definitely gets tedious. Like the difference between 4 pixels and 3 pixels and 2 pixels and just moving everything around by these small amounts doesn't feel like it's having a huge impact, but definitely does make a difference if things line up correctly and different stuff like that. Is this, I'm guessing this is a meeting ping? Yeah. I'll probably be heading out actually before too long here. Another 10-15 minutes is probably about all I got, and then I'm gonna head out, have some lunch and stuff before the meeting. This looks like it's lining up perfectly now here, which I do like better. You know, we also honestly have a little bit of room. This could scoot to the right some. Maybe we could get that line back in between them. Oh, but we'll need to do this actually down here. There we go. I do kind of like actually the spacer between them. Extra couple of pixels in there because it really helps to note that the right half of the screen is separate from the left half of the screen. Although I will mention also the relatively vague temperature here does kind of apply to the right half of the screen as well. But I don't want to scoot it and make it just bleed into this, because then they would look like they're part of the same label, which I don't want necessarily. Yeah, I don't want to imagine this in Arduino. Yeah. I don't do a whole lot of Android, like, application development in the way that most people probably think of it, right? I'm not making a whole lot of, like, phone applications for Android. But I have done a few, and it is maddening how much slower the iteration is between that and CircuitPython, which I assume Arduino, honestly don't think I've ever done anything in Arduino with a display, but I suspect it would feel very similar to Android, where each iteration requires like a compile and run on the device, which is like 10 or 20 or more seconds to do all of that. And it can go wrong, like you tell it to load and it just fails and you have to try again or whatever. This is like, save the file, Takes it a second to refresh, but we're already done. We don't have to do anything besides save the file. We don't really have a chance for failure. Maybe if we had real data, we weren't doing test run, we could fail the request, but it already has built-in retries, so. Yeah. I've dipped my toes only in iPhone. I've done a whole lot of Android stuff. Done probably 2 or 3 like more traditional mobile applications that none of them were very big, but a couple of them that are like traditional mobile apps, and then the majority of my development is actually on Android player devices, which are not really phones. They're like more like a set-top box, almost like a Raspberry Pi, but it runs Android. In fact, we actually used some at one point that were the same form factor as the Raspberry Pi, Asus Tinkerboard. But the main thing I make for it doesn't really have an interface. It's a signage software which allows people to display whatever content they want. So the interface is kind of like whatever the user wants to play. I try to help facilitate them getting onto the screen, which is a different way to think about interfaces, really, because the actual application itself doesn't really have much of an interface. The server that controls it, there's a lot of UI there, but that's all web applications, so it's like different type of development. I think I'm pretty happy with this. We got a bunch of the other labels deleted. Got all of my comments taken out, all the ones where I just turned stuff off. Really need the spaces there. I'm feeling pretty good about this. I almost want to try to keep the original code there, just so like somebody could reference it if they ever wanted to build a UI that was more like the old version. Pre-Swift, yeah, Objective-C. I've heard that Swift makes it quite a bit easier. The dabbling that I did was before Swift as well, so I don't actually know specifics. And it was very brief. Like, we did an iOS project, but I was not the one who worked on it at work. This is where this came from. So, like, I was aware of the code, and I did a little bit of tinkering on it, but didn't actually make it myself. I think what I want to do is maybe let's make the PR, and then I'll probably head out. But I think instead of just updating this, I almost want to make a new directory with like the old version or something. That's true, but then it'll get downloaded. I don't know, I'm torn. Yeah, I'll do it that way. We'll see if Anne or Lydia have any feedback about it, and switch it back out if they do. Oh, I wonder. Maybe shouldn't have done that. Yeah, I shouldn't have done that. I don't know. This did more than just move it. It like changed code and stuff. That's really not what I wanted. I wanted to just copy the file and put it into there. Paste, cut the file, I guess, and put it into there. But PyCharm is a little too smart for its own good sometimes, and you move a file like that and it goes to try to change some of the code to reference it. So there's actually, just did this trick on the Winamp one. The name of the file though. There's a file I can put in here that'll make it skip the screenshot for this directory. Alright, let's do this. Check out. All right. So the last thing we need to be sure to mention here is that this actually does rely on this. So we need to wait at least until this gets merged before we would merge the library one. Oh, did I do that wrong? Oh. Okay. Probably some minor tweaks we'll need in the guide as well, but the guide talks about some stuff that's no longer there now. But I didn't change too much. Like all the helper functions and stuff are still there. The overall way the application is built is still roughly the same. We just have different amounts of texts and stuff now. One thing I didn't do is run Silent or Black. Guess we probably should have. Okay. Did actually end up with a format change as well, so let's push a couple of them, it looks like. All right. Here we go. Here's in, shows an example. Of course, we'll also, when this does get merged, we will need to update the guide a bit. We'll put a new photo, you know, of course, because this looks different now. So we'll put a new photo with the updated visuals. I think there's probably a couple other things we'll end up changing as well. I think the guide referenced the third-party API, which we'll get rid of. Yeah, we'll change the photo. We can happily we'll be able to get rid of this warning, which is nice. Yeah, and some of the stuff here is like referencing out to that third-party server, which we no longer are going to be using, so that stuff can go away. I'll probably make a note, I'll probably make a note that there's an older version that worked differently, but not like remove all the rest of the specific stuff about it. This is not my mag tag. I don't have a black mag tag. Interesting. Maybe Ann? I think maybe this is one where Ann took a photo, swapped it out. My photo, I think my photo maybe had that weird angle thing I was doing with the light on. I think I had it like this. Which I've stopped now. Started doing them straight on like this with no flashlight. So that it doesn't glare anymore. Because that's the whole reason for the angle, was to get the glare to go back away from the camera. But with no flash, that means no glare. That means it can be straight on. So yeah, we have a couple things to tweak whenever this does actually get merged, but it does all hinge on this one. So that's kind of where we're at on this project, is once this one gets merged, then our Learn repo PR can be merged, and then once that happens, the Learn guide pages can be updated to reflect the newest code. So I'll keep an eye on these PRs and do that whenever that ends up happening. But I am going to probably head out for now, so the meeting is in about an hour from now, 56 minutes by my clock, so I'm going to grab some food, and I need to fill in the doc. I don't think I filled in anything to the doc this week, so I'll fill in that stuff, and yeah, and then I'll be in the meeting, and I don't know, I may stream some more in the afternoon. I'll definitely be working on something, so possibly I'll hop on the stream, possibly not. Just kind of depends how I'm feeling and how long the meeting is and stuff like that, but yeah, totally agree. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thanks for watching. I will catch you all later, Johnny and C Grover. Thanks. Anybody else who might be watching, thank you as well. And yeah, I'll see you all in the meeting later on today if you're going to be joining in there. Otherwise, I'll see you next time. Next Saturday will be the next time for sure. But I'm streaming, or I guess I should say Friday. This Friday afternoon, I'll be on Deep Dive with Scott. I'll be making an appearance to chat with Scott a little bit. So that'll be the next place for sure to catch me if you want. So thanks all, and I will see you then.